So at any rate, good afternoon, I guess. I'm Molly Hart. I work here at Langsam, and I do a lot for international global initiatives, as well as I'm instructor liaison for German studies and languages. And there are a lot of my colleagues here today, and I think we'll start with introducing ourselves at the beginning, so that everybody knows who's who. But I would just to explain how this event, the idea of this event came up. Many of you know that we regularly have events here in libraries, and we thought that it would be nice to have something featuring the global outreach of UC and the experiences that UC students have on their trips abroad. And we thought that that would be interesting for different reasons to staff and students. I thought that students who are getting ready to study abroad or maybe didn't have very good experiences would like to hear from you. What skills and attitudes help you make the most of your trip, or if things went wrong, how did you manage to turn things around? And we also invited UC International and library staff because we would like to hear from you if we are doing enough. What else we can do to, help your experience in the future. So with that said, let's go around and introduce ourselves. And please feel free to, get up and get more food. Okay?
I'm Debbie Tanowski. I'm the head of research, teaching, and services here in the Langsam Library.
Kevin Grace, I'm with the Archives and Rare Books Library, and then I also teach in the honors program at Take Six as well.
I'm Jill Reister. I'm with UC International Programs, study abroad advisor for students going on long-term programs, primarily from arts and science, or from McMicken, allied health, nursing, CECH, UC Blue Ash, medicine, and law.
I'm Healthy Carpenter, I'm a student. I don't have a title.
I'm Robert Papanetti. I'm also a student. I'm a senior in chemical engineering, and I've been to Moscow a couple times and then Germany once.
I'm Nithya Olson. I'm a fourth year neuroscience major. I've been to London, Madrid, Edinburgh, South Africa, and I'm going to China.
I'm Matthew Baumann, I'm a PhD candidate in German studies. I've been to Germany several times.
I'm John Shahan. I'm also a PhD candidate in German studies. I've been to quite a few places in Europe, but each time based in Germany.
My name is Gabriel Venegas. I'm a fourth year philosophy and history major, and I studied abroad in Japan for a year.
My name is Lina, and I'm a master's in public health student, and I studied abroad in Ghana, Spain, Thailand, and India.
I'm Ruthie Myers, and I'm a fine arts major. I'll be graduating in 2 weeks, and I studied in Israel last year.
I'm Maria Jacob. I graduated in 2 weeks as well in liberal arts, and I studied abroad in Thailand fall of 2013.
I'm Michaela Corday, and I work at Langsam Library. I'm a catalog and electronic resources department.
I'm Holly. I'm from China. I'm the first year PhD student in sociology, and I used to work at Langsam.
Misha Anderson. I work in acquisitions purchasing of our library materials here at Langsam.
Hi, I'm Arlene Johnson. I'm the library liaison to Romance languages and literatures, and I'm also leading the library's digital humanities initiative.
I'm Denise Ignatius, and I work in research, teaching, and services, mostly at the circulation desk. I'll be seeing through y'all.
Hi, I'm Anvita. I'm a student of the College of Business, and I work at the reference section at Langsam.
I'm Pam Bach, and I'm the undergrad research and teaching librarian here at Langsam.
I'm Megan Stevenson, and I graduate in December. I'm studying Arabic and psychology, and I will be studying abroad in Oman for 6 weeks
thanks a lot, and I also wanted to add that more people wanted to be here, but unfortunately there is a conflict with classes. So I hope nobody minds that this session is going to be recorded so that more people can see it. Thank you, and now I would like to turn it over to Karen.
Okay, thanks, Oya, and thank you. Oya is doing a lot of this through a diversity grant received by the libraries to foster a larger libraries effort in terms of engaging our diversity populations on campus, and that includes largely international students as well. And also want to thank Ryan and Jill. They've been great men, and we couldn't do anything without UC International. And I even found out yesterday in planning the trip next year that we have this new database or software that can plug everything in, and all of a sudden the teacher doesn't have to do anything except get there. So I'm real happy about that.
Oh, and I'm sorry, and Scott didn't introduce himself. He works with the media and IT support. Sorry.
Thank you.
Well, let's really start off then with something Oya has brought up, and that is what attitudes did you find necessary that got you through your study abroad experience? What qualities did you have to exhibit if things went wrong or if things went right? What helped you through the whole thing? And this is open, so anybody just pipe up.
Well, I would say for me, a big thing, when I got to Moscow, I was going to be there for a semester. When I got there, it was like right after the biggest snowfall Moscow's ever had in like 50 years. And everything was in Cyrillic. And like the whole country's completely backwards in a lot of senses. And so when I got there, like I was absolutely the first week or so, like what am I doing in this country? But I guess sort of the attitude that I sort of went with was, just roll with whatever happens, and have fun doing whatever it is you're doing, even if you have absolutely no idea what that is. And so that's kind of what I did for the whole semester, and it ended up being absolutely wonderful. But I think just that mentality of just rolling and having fun doing everything really helped.
Yeah, I agree. You have to learn to adapt. During my year at the University of Heidelberg in Germany, there were a lot of bureaucratic mistakes that were going on in the international student office. I made friends with a lot of students from around Europe who were part of the Erasmus program, and they were having the same problems that I had. So it took us about a month to get our student ID, for which you needed for all sorts of purposes. They told us things like our landlord has it and we need to check with the landlord and things like, which was untrue. And then for the library, we needed utility bills and a letter from our landlord to use the library, which was obviously kind of daunting. But overall, once we learned to adapt to these difficulties, it was a really wonderful experience.
I think for me, I got a big lesson in becoming more independent. For me, like even though I was in college and had moved away from home, I felt like I still had like a big support system and people were always trying to help me out, and I never felt like truly like I had to do things by myself. But when I moved, when I was studying abroad in Spain, the first day, our driver picked us up from the airport and like took us back home. And then I went to school and then came back on the metro and had no idea how to get back to my house. And I was like, oh, just wandering around for an hour trying to figure out. My Spanish wasn't that great. I was still trying to like work on it, didn't feel 100% confident. But eventually I found my house and I just realized like how I really need to be more organized and more independent and really figure things out instead of just saying like, oh, someone will help me out or I'll be able to figure it out. So I really was able to get more organized and become more independent and be more confident. While I was at UC, I get lost all the time, just like on one of the side streets and not know where I am, but now I feel a lot more confident in my ability and sense of direction. So I think that really helped me with my independence. And another experience when I was in Thailand, there was all the riots and the protests were going on when we were there. So we had to really think about our own safety. And Not just that, but like what we were talking about in public. We couldn't really talk about the situation or post about it on our blog, just being more cautious. I think we take the freedom of speech really for granted here in the US. And so I really had to be careful about what we were saying, like making sure we had our proper documentation and things like that. And so I think that really taught me a lesson as well.
Personally, personally, I think building friendship abroad is very important. On the other hand, I think language, improving your language is also very important. I would like to show an example of another exchange scholar I met recently, and she just arrived here a couple of weeks ago. And when I'm working at UC International as a GA, and she just stopped by our office because probably I think she supposed that I'm an Asian person from my appearance, and she looked miserable. And I asked her what I could help her. And then she introduced herself. I asked her if she could speak Chinese. Obviously, her English was not that good to communicate with native English speakers. And then she expressed that she expressed in Chinese, even in Chinese, for a long time, to make it clear that she is pregnant. She found out she is pregnant after she arrived here. And she was not knowing what she is going to do. She hasn't had her health insurance yet. She consulted some friends, but those friends probably could not give her very good advice. And she was so scared that if before she buy the insurance, if she does not tell the insurance company that she's pregnant, people will think that she's not reliable or she's cheating. And then, so she asked me if I could help her to help her translate at UC International office. And I showed her to the office, and Jennifer there helped her. And Jennifer informed her that people will not ask you, and you just buy what you need, and they will not turn you down if you are pregnant. So I think language and have some relationship or friendship with the local people there, or go to the organizations that you belong to is very important.
So along with what Holly was saying, a big part, I think, of helping myself become a part of the culture in Israel was befriending an Israeli family and really going outside the boundaries of the student village, which consisted of international students as well as some locals, but really going outside of that area and talking with local students in the school, as well as getting to know some of their families once I became better friends with them. That really showed me a different perspective than just what everyone's talking about that lives in the dorms, and like that pretty much I could already find out like what they do, but I was getting firsthand experience, as well as taking initiative on exploring what interests you is a big thing. I started traveling like the second weekend I was there, and I mean Israel's like 4 hours east to west and 10 hours north to south, so it's really easy to travel there. But a lot of people didn't, like other people who I was around, and it really helped just taking a bus, just going out every weekend, like even if it was kind of weird, like don't really know the country that well, Google Maps will get you there. It is okay. It really just completely opened me up to a new world, and yeah, it was great talking to locals, and if I got lost, I could ask someone, like yes, like with caution, not just approaching any stranger, but it was really great. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the best advice that I'd like to give my students is to tell them to get lost when they get there. But leading a student group, I can't do that. But it is a great way to find your way around and to get to know people. But Robert, you had mentioned the snowstorm, and you had mentioned riots in Thailand. What other surprises did you guys find when you got there that were totally unexpected? either culturally or in terms of events that were happening?
There was a war in Israel when I was there. That was actually at the end of my experience, but that happened. And I was I was in Israel for 11 months, came back for 30 days, then led a group of 30 teenagers back to Israel on a trip, and that's when the war broke out. And just experiencing, not only protecting, like, keeping track of what the schedule was, itinerary was for the teenagers and making sure that they were safe, but wanting to do my own part, because by that point I felt like I was part of the society and I needed to be doing something more. But that was a big surprise. Also the mentality that was there. I remember during my orientation when I got to school, they told us not to just smile at strangers on the street. And I'm someone who, like, when I see someone walking by, like, I smile or I wave. What's the big deal? But they're like, don't do that. Like, they'll think you're implying something else. And so that was a big change. And people push and shove, and like when they're trying to get on public transportation, they won't say sorry, but at the end of the day, they'll invite you over for dinner if, like, they realize that you don't have a place for dinner. Like, they're like, oh, what are you doing? Okay, come over. Like, be with my family, be a part of the family. And so it's just a very honest culture, and I think that happens in a lot of places in Europe and Asia. It makes you, like, step back for a second and be like, wow, there's no beating around the bush here, but it's a nice awakening.
Anybody run into any other cultural surprises like that in terms of behaviors you weren't used to?
When I was in Japan, they have a tendency, especially to kind of idolize the West. So walking around in a small village, you kind of become a bit of a celebrity. It was really weird having, if I was like on a jog or a walk or something, there was almost always about 10 or 12 school kids follow me around yelling hero. They're yelling all kinds of American words or English words that they've heard. Kind of being a center of attention was a very odd thing. You kind of had to realize that wherever you were representing your entire country in a way, because those kids would walk away and be like, I met this American, all Americans do this. It was very odd to do that. Also, you had to totally adapt to the way the Japanese they're almost always quiet. All these different rules. There's no talking on any kind of public transportation, which is totally different than the US. You couldn't talk on a phone. You really didn't want to use your phone around other people. Try to find out all the rules for eating was also very difficult. You can't walk and eat in Japan. It's really rude. People will stare at you. They get really mad. Walking and drinking is odd. Kind of getting used to just the fact that there's this whole different rule system, value-based system they have, and kind of you have to. No one's going to tell you what it is. You kind of have to observe other people doing their thing and like learn the rules very quickly in order to stop getting gawked at so much.
And my Japanese friends told me that in Japan, when you eat noodles, you're supposed to eat it with very, very loud sound.
And burp.
It means that the noodles are so delicious. It's also the respect to the people who make the noodles for you. So, but here in the United States, it's very impolite to do that, to make the sounds when you are eating. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
You've traveled, of course, going home to India with your family for extended periods, but you've also been in South Africa. Was there anything different about South Africa that
I was surprised by how like India it was, just kind of culturally, because they have a huge Indian immigrant population in one of the cities, Durban, that we went to. Another thing was kind of the racial undertones, just kind of throughout. We spent it was through a program where we studied HIV and tuberculosis. So we were visiting some of the clinics and some of the hospitals. It was just 2 weeks, Pakatula trip. And even though apartheid was about 20 years ago and is when it ended, there's still kind of that undercurrent of there's very much a difference between, you know, the white people in South Africa and the black people in South Africa. And that was a little bit jarring, especially in the clinic with the way that the doctor was behaving towards some of the patients. And so that was definitely something that I didn't have to get used to because I wasn't there that long, but it was a little jarring and kind of had to like hold back a little.
Yeah, when I had students there for 5 weeks a few years ago, one of their biggest shocks was all the homes with walls and barbed wire and electric wire
Yeah, there was a
around
ton
the
of barbed
perimeters.
wire, just
So,
everything.
yeah, there's still a lot of concern about that. Anybody else? We haven't heard from you yet.
Yeah, I'm just kind of letting everybody else do their thing.
Well, it's your thing now.
Well, I think in Thailand, I've traveled to other places before, so I've realized that American society and our pop culture has penetrated a lot of different countries. But, you know, you go live somewhere and you realize like how in depth they know about our lives and kind of what's relevant to us. So it's just odd to go to a club and hear music that you would hear here in America and maybe not necessarily listen to, but it's something that they love because it's something that Americans do and listen to, and it has something to do with us. So I thought it was a bit surprising how deeply intertwined our pop culture is in the rest of the world and how much they really do admire some things that we do in terms of, you know, music and movies and whatnot. So that was surprising.
Did any of you run into any problems because you were in America?
I don't know. I smell pizza.
I had a little bit of that. When I was in Russia, it was right after the Magnitsky trials were going on here. And actually when I was in Germany too, that was, you know, the beginning of my time there was when the NSA spying thing was blowing up. And so there, much more so in Russia, but there was a little bit of anti-US sentiment in both those places. It was kind of awkward. You know, like, especially in Russia, like with my friends, we'd be talking about it, they'd be like, well, what's the US doing? This is actually none of your business. And I'd say like, well, all right now, we're trying to do the best here. And, you know, trying to defend what we were doing, because that's just, seemed like such a natural response to me.
I ended up having to be the cultural representative of the United States in my apartment building. We shared
It's a big load.
yeah.
A lot of responsibility.
Oh yeah, we shared a kitchen and bathroom, so we spent a lot of time together, which is common in Germany for students to share apartment buildings. But over dinner, it would be very frequent that people would either disapprove of or be confused by the American political system, and I had to explain what was going on, like the electoral college, or various things that I barely understand about politics. And I was continuously the representative, and it wasn't that they were angry with me, they just didn't get it, and it was up to me to explain.
Did you guys run into any of the reverse of that, where you had trouble understanding the politics or the current events in the countries where you were living? I mean, you mentioned war was going on.
Yeah, and through all of my experiences there, it actually not only being questioned about what happens in what's going on in America, but as well as what's going on around me while I was in Israel, it really encouraged me to do my own research. And that's when I was saying, not only talking with other students, but talking with Israelis and talking with people back home, and reading a lot. So it ended up becoming like one of my strongest passions to know about Israeli politics, Middle East politics, and for a while I was like, why am I studying fine arts? I should be studying like international relations. And it definitely, that's actually when I came back to the U.S., I decided that my thesis was going to kind of be based on it, and it really just encouraged a lot of research myself and using the libraries and all of the resources available.
Okay, well, that brings up another question. Do you think you were prepared enough before you went to these countries?
I definitely did my research. I had a map of the city. I was like on it every single day, kind of checking it out, because it was so exciting to me. I really wanted to know where I was going to be and who I was going to be meeting and what their interests would be, and kind of how I can get myself as far into a local status as I could. So I definitely think that doing a lot of research beforehand was really helpful to me, and I don't think there were a whole lot of surprises in terms of how Thailand was compared to how I thought it would be. So it's good to be prepared, because you at least know a little bit more of the turf and a little more of the situations you're going to get in.
Did you see help do you think overall the university was helpful in preparing you for study abroad?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our university was really helpful. I thought that, meeting with Jill and getting a little bit more lay of the land and a little bit more background about Thailand was helpful. Even a study abroad representative who had been to Thailand before taught me a lot about her experience, and I reached out to as many people as I could that had been to Thailand, and I gathered as much information from people who had been in my shoes before as I could.
Matthew, you've been to Germany a number of times, though. What was your first experience like? Was it through UC?
It was actually not. It was through Ohio State as an undergrad. I went. But I mean, I've been to UC as a graduate student, or been to Germany as a UC graduate student a couple of times, and I guess that's a little bit different. I've been there before, and really kind of seen how it works. But actually, the interesting thing that I found was that every time you go to a different city in Germany, and I've been affiliated with 5 or so universities now, it's a completely different system, and you have to kind of reorient. So there's nothing you can do. I was when I went this most recent time, I was 10 days in Essen. Oh, I've been to Germany. I've been to Bonn before I was there at the university. I know how this works. Of course, the University of Essen is a completely different. Every single bureaucratic thing you can imagine is the inverse, if not, the diametrically opposed to what happens there. And so you end up having to kind of relearn a lot of things. And so that's where kind of being able to roll with it and be open to these kind of differences. Because the interesting thing, I think, is that what got me was never, and I guess this is Germany, it's not a majorly different culture. It was the subtlety of the differences, right? That it's you go to Germany, be more or less the same, and that's not true. The differences are not so on the surface, they're much more subtle, kind of buried. The things like not smiling at people, right? Not because they're rude, but because eye contact is also included in their conception of personal space. So if you make eye contact with someone, that is an invasion of their privacy, right? It's just as weird as if you had walked up and hugged them, right? A complete stranger would take that, in the same way. And so learning those kinds of things, or the fact that you don't jaywalk, right? That it's not, and people care, right? It's not that it's just, oh, well, don't do it, you can get a ticket or whatever. People, there's an order to be enforced, and the Germans are there to enforce that order. So you can get told off by an old woman, right? If you're jaywalking across the street, she'll tell you, kids could be watching. That's one of the concerns, is that they'll see you do that, and they'll think, oh, I'll just run in the street. Whether or not that's accurate, I don't know. But these kind of subtle, fine-grained differences are what has been really interesting to me as I've been over there. So,
Makes it tough, doesn't it?
It kind of does. You learn and adjust, but every once in a while, there's this new thing. Oh well, don't wear blue on Thursdays. Something as weird as that you take very seriously. You think it's a silly thing, but it's legitimate.
How many of you were part of a university where you were studying? Okay. What sorts of resources did you have at that university? John, you mentioned you had trouble getting authorization. Did any of you have trouble using, say, the library resources at these universities, or were the resources there that you needed?
Yeah, I felt like, we had a library card, we had access to it. We felt like a normal student at Chiang Mai University, so that was really helpful. Also, studying abroad with USAC, they had on-site staff in case we had any questions, so that was really helpful too, because they can direct you wherever you need to go.
For the library was excellent because the school I stayed at was geared towards foreign students. It was like half Japanese students, half foreign students. So the library had a whole English section of all of the Japanese books. It had all kinds of great movies and magazines translated in English or with English subtitles, so you could learn the language quicker. The school itself was terrible, though, in terms of like integrating and learning about English. It seemed like, except for the staff designed to acclimate foreign students, the rest of the staff had no interest in the foreign students. They didn't want to talk to us. They didn't want to help out. I didn't really have a huge big deal because I wasn't really interested in getting involved in school more than just the town, but a lot of students wanted to participate in clubs and like help out or create their own clubs, and they were just totally stonewalled by an extremely complex bureaucratic system and kind of just the disinterest of the staff.
That's an interesting, that's certainly for me one of the interesting things. And again, this idea that every German university is completely different. The same goes for their library system. And some places, like John said, you know, you have to really establish residency with utility bills and letters from your landlord in order to get in the library. Other places, it's much more like the U.S. system where they have browsable stacks and you can just kind of go and get what you need. Some places a little in between. Maybe you're not allowed to. Maybe you're not allowed to. You don't. The university doesn't offer borrowing privileges. You have to use the stuff on site, and that's kind of, you know, something you learn as you go, I guess. But it's just. But as far as it is, the question is, you know, the resources that you need versus, I guess, the resources that you're used to, right? Because I'm used to, you know, taking a big 10 books home or something, flipping through them kind of at my leisure and getting what I need and then bringing them back, you know, after 2 days. But if you have to do the work in the library, you know, maybe they have an option to copy for 10 cents a page or something, you know. You don't have that, you have to kind of adapt to the system that they have. So that's sort of, and I think that's something to go, just, again, being open to whatever it is, because that's how you got to do it. But they're not going to change for you.
What about things that we really strive for here in the UC libraries to make them available and accessible, but databases and IT resources? Was there any issue with that over in your universities? Were they satisfactory, or did you want more?
Well, to be honest, I used UC Access a lot of the time, right? Because you can go, you know, either through the VPN or through proxy access. I ended up using a lot of UC databases, so that was very helpful.
Before I came here to study at UC, I was able to, you know, check all the information I want here for the facilities of library or UC International. And unfortunately, for some students who are going to go to China, probably it's not convenient for them to use Facebook, Google, and YouTube, because these websites are prohibited over there right now. But after Facebook was created, people could use Facebook in China, but for some reason it was closed a couple of years after that. And so I remember that. I had my Facebook in the United States in 2007, and I went back and I still continue to use it, but in 1 year it was closed. So.
Anybody else run into that where things were prohibited that you take for granted here, John?
Yeah, at the time, things like Pandora for music listening, or Netflix, or Hulu were prohibited because of licensing issues. So tons of Germans that I met pirated DVDs and software because they felt like they weren't given enough options for legally streaming movies and media. And I found that to be pretty interesting because ultimately it was counterproductive for media in Germany to have all these licensing difficulties.
Kind of going off of that, when I was studying abroad in Madrid, Arrested Development's new season came out on Netflix, but unfortunately the Madrid version of Netflix didn't have it. So I was upset. And but I managed to find, there's actually an extension on Chrome that allows you to act as though your Chrome is the American version. Ola, yeah. And so I kind of got around that.
There's a thriving trade of subscription VPNs and proxy servers and things in Europe that will tunnel your traffic through an American ISP so you can watch American Netflix.
So there's a whole culture of getting around difficult. What about things like Twitter? I mean, was Twitter banned in China?
I didn't use Twitter a lot, I'm not sure. Probably. Yes, I don't know.
Well, we've seen attempts by governments to repress Twitter, especially in the wake of the Arab Spring, because people are communicating and governments don't want that.
Probably no.
Did anybody else have any problems with things like social media, Facebook, or anything else? Access?
I learned a lot about social media when I was there. I ended up taking a social media class, and it was to teach us how to promote for studying abroad once we're back in the U.S. And so I learned how to utilize Facebook in different ways. We actually had people from China who weren't able to use Facebook, and our main format, it was Google. So it was interesting, like working with them, and our job was to still study in communication. And so depending on it was really strange how I was contacted by people from China. But it really showed us the different ways that we can utilize different social media outlets and how to promote for going abroad. And it's a great help not only for that, but also for my art career and many other ways. So less limited, Israel's very high tech.
Actually, Chinese people created some very convenient media like WeChat and QQ. And like QQ, they combined emails, Facebook, and Skype all together in one software, and people can communicate easily. I communicate with my family and friends in China with this software, and now we have WeChat, and some of my American friends started to use it, and they found it's so convenient, and they love it.
Yeah, there's a new app or something like maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be big here now.
That's important too, actually, is that not every country uses the same social media that you may be used to. And if you'll bear with me as I think back to the dark ages of 2007 when I first went to Germany. I know, right? But I was used to, at the time, AOL Instant Messenger was the standard for instant messaging and whatever. And in Germany it was MSN. And, right? So you eventually figured that out, but then there's nobody kind of available on this platform that I used to. Turns out they're all over here. They also had like a Facebook, like a German Facebook, because I think Facebook wasn't available in Germany at the time, so there's a German version of Facebook. So I had like 2 Facebook accounts. So there's a weird segregation of like, okay, all my friends in Europe are over here, and then you have like 4 different windows open. Trying to talk to all the people that's spread around. But yeah, to find out like what those things are and or to stay in contact with people in the country.
I also think people in different countries may use the same social media in different ways. For example, I'm friends with a lot of the people that I worked with when I was in Thailand, and almost every day I'll be tagged in a status or a post. It'll be not a picture of me, but I'll be tagged in a picture, and it'll just be a news article, but they're trying to tell people about it. And so instead of just posting it on their wall or timeline, it'll just tag everyone that they want to know about it. And that's not really something that I would do here. Or if I post an interesting article, I wouldn't just tag all my friends in it, but there'll be 250 people tagged in this post. And people will be commenting on it and different things. But I think maybe different cultures use the same social media differently, maybe to get information out or post things, maybe not just a social way, but also to get out information or educate others. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
It's kind of interesting. It's almost kind of like some countries have trends. Like, for example, SMS messaging was a lot more prominent in Russia, and I'm sure in Germany as well, way before it became that popular in the United States. And that practice of tagging people, I just started noticing it in textbooks on Facebook. And again, It actually came, I think, originally from international students. I never thought about it until we came because, you know, I would typically put a comment field and say, at such and such, check this out, right? Or send them a personal message. But I recently, just the last couple of weeks actually, I started seeing people's names in, you know, as tags, you know, if they want to check it out. So there are sort of fashion trends, if you will, in social media. But some of them do, I agree now that you said that they, it may have been like a convention in some country, and then it sort of spills over and goes over to other countries. Interesting.
You mentioned living with a family in Israel, and a lot of you have been with international university, or universities in this international abroad experience. How much interaction did you have with actual Thai students, Thai college students, or Russian college students? I mean, or was most of your interaction with other international students?
I had quite a bit of contact with other Russian students. Like where I was, it was the school for like foreign studies is where our program was through. And so there were a lot of Russian students that were studying, you know, English or Spanish or whatever their particular interest was. And so we would see these people like in the cafeteria every day, you know, talk to them and start hanging out after school and whatnot. I mean, it was pretty similar to what it is here. You know, you just meet people, and a lot of them happen to be Russian because we were in Moscow.
Yeah, there are a lot of Russians there.
There are, yeah. Yeah, I thought it worked out pretty well, though.
Yeah, and they all speak English conveniently for you.
They did,
Particularly
yeah.
in that school, yeah.
It was actually, their English was so good, it was sort of irritating, because I would try to speak Russian with them, and then something important would come up, and they would switch to English. They would just be flawless English, and I was like, all right, why am I even making this effort?
That's very true. Almost all my American friends who have been in China have this similar experience. They try to learn some Chinese, but wherever they go, people just try to practice their English with them.
I would speak Hebrew to them, but they would speak English back to me.
Yeah.
They wanted to improve
You have
me.
two different agendas. You want
Yeah.
to learn.
When I was in Madrid, actually Nithya and I went together. We were at like a Spanish language school, so it was people coming from all different places, all over Europe, all over like the Middle East even, and China, like South America, that were coming to learn Spanish. And actually one of the most interesting parts was we had a lot of Chinese students that came, but they didn't speak English. So when we were trying to communicate in Spanish, it was like I'm trying to like go from English to Spanish, and then they're trying to go from Chinese to Spanish, so there's a lot of like confusion there. And so I thought that was like a pretty interesting thing. Like we're all trying to learn Spanish together, but we all have very different first languages, so it's really interesting.
And this is my experience of interacting with a Japanese girl who just arrived here, and with her husband, she doesn't know English that much, and I learned a little bit Japanese before when I was at college, and we Japanese and Chinese share some characters. So when we communicated, we speak English, but when we cannot communicate in English, we switch to some Japanese. If the Japanese doesn't work, we might use some characters.
Make sure you have the Google Translate app.
What other tools do you need like that? I mean, what can the libraries do to help out your study abroad experiences? Is there more software databases we can make available to you?
Well, there's actually a pretty cool app that my sister showed me that is like you can download on your phone, and it kind of is like a camera, and then you can like point it at like a sign or like something, and it'll translate it for you, which is really helpful when if you're just like walking around and you're like, I don't know what the sign says, should I go left or right? You can kind of use that to help you out. And I think there's a lot of different tools, or even taking like a small pocket dictionary or something with you is really helpful. Especially, I think it's really nice, like even if you're going to a country where you don't speak the language, and maybe you're not there just to learn the language, even if you learn some phrases, and I think it's really nice to be able to at least use a little bit of that language in the country.
I think for the libraries, besides like databases that would have rules, social faux pas, like laws and stuff like that, really learning the language is about interacting with the people. So I think the library needs to have like interaction, like clubs, stuff like that. Meeting the people, to me, is more important than reading the language if you want to learn the language. Which brings you back to the other part about interacting with foreign students versus native students that live in the country you're studying abroad in versus like other students that are studying abroad there. That's totally up to you. You can sit in your dorm all the time, but if you want to interact with foreign students, you have to leave your dorm and leave your group and go meet someone. I used to try to get lost all the time just so I could force myself to ask for directions because it would make me practice my Japanese. That's the way I think you have to learn language, is interacting with people.
Does anyone here in the libraries have questions? Or do you have any questions? Are you scared?
I'm nervous, yeah.
Nervous, okay, that's a better term.
Yeah, I'm nervous.
Yeah,
I'm
we're all
not
nervous.
scared.
Excited, nervous?
Yeah, excited, nervous. This is my first time studying abroad. And I guess my biggest worry is just going over there and doing something that's totally unacceptable in their culture. And
it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I
But I don't think, I guess depending on where you go, probably won't be pitchforks and torches.
Hopefully not. Yeah, I'm hoping.
And it's the worst feeling in the world. Like, get over it and just don't do it again. It's going to totally happen.
Yeah. And I guess my other concern is just being able to converse, because I have a friend that did the same program last summer, and he said most of the professors you'll be working with don't speak any English. So it kind of gets rid of here learning Arabic. I don't understand that word. Can you help me understand what you're trying to say? But there it's all conversing in Arabic. I won't be able to ask, okay, I have no clue. Can you just tell me in English? Like, just give me the easy way out. They're not going to be able to do that. So.
Are you comfortable with reading Arabic enough that you understand the signage and all that business?
Yeah. For the most part, I'm good with that. I've been studying for 3 years, so I have a good general handle of the language.
Well, let me ask this to the other women on this. Gender relations are different in different countries and in different cultures. Any issues with that, or anything she should anticipate? I don't think any of you have been to an Arab country. Closest maybe is Israel. But is there any way you can prepare for that, or how did you react to it when you ran into these gender issues?
Well, I haven't studied abroad in Egypt, but I went with my family, and I think sometimes you do feel a little bit different being like a woman. Like here, you don't really think about it; you just kind of go about your day. But people might look at you differently, especially if you're walking in a group of just women. And even in India, I feel like that sometimes. Like if you're just walking in a group of women, like that's considered strange. And so you don't necessarily have to change how you're acting, but recognizing some of those things, I think is the important part, and not just, you can't just like do it whatever you want. You kind of have to figure out like what are the cultural norms and how can I fit in best so I don't like create a scene or like stand out too much and look like a target.
Like me, you're bound to stick out with like blonde hair, blue eyes in the Middle East. But it's like you were saying, it's a matter of like being aware that you're going to stick out. And what I was saying earlier about making eye contact, like people will stare at you, but don't stare back at them. Like just like kind of like look the other way maybe. I remember one time I was riding a bus and I didn't realize we were going through a religious neighborhood where they don't show their collarbones, the women don't. They don't show their elbows, ankles, really much at all. And the bus driver, he's been conversing with me beforehand, and he like yelled back at me in the bus, and he said, "Put your scarf on." I didn't understand what he was saying, but I realized what he was saying, and I had like a scarf that was in my lap, but he saw it when I walked on the bus, and he told me to put it around myself because otherwise I when all these religious people got on with the stuff, they would have been saying something to me. And so just being prepared for situations like that, and I think not being insulted by it, but I mean, that's your own choice, but just not standing out, I guess, in dress or, yeah, I don't know, I'm not trying to say change who, like,
No,
what you're
yeah,
wearing,
we have a
but-
dress code. We actually have like a dress code that we are supposed to prepare for, so I'm going like,
right.
dress modestly, you have to have scarves with you in case of that sort of thing, so.
You can sit on them, you can put them on.
Yeah.
Good for the beach. But yeah.
And I think on the other hand, we should also avoid the stereotypes of different religions or nations, because I have some Chinese friends who came over here. Before they came here, they thought, oh, the United States is a very open country. People can wear whatever they want, or so a girl just wore miniskirts all the time to school, and then later she was told that, you know, when you go to school like students, you are not supposed to do that. That's just for parties probably.
It's like different state to state in the U.S. It's also like different city to city, and bus stop to bus stop.
Any questions from you or from you? From you? I mean, you have experts here that will guide you through all UC's requirements for study abroad, but is there anything you want to ask the librarians? How we can help you, or?
I just wanted to tell you guys that, you know, Jill and I were talking, and I had this idea to develop a campus guide. Some of you are probably familiar with our online guides, right? We call them campus guides and big guides, you know. Those are sort of combinations of resources, a mix of two resources and tips and stuff like that. And I've seen a couple of schools that have really decent guides for study abroad. And so I ran this idea by Jill, and Jill thought it would be great and we would put it in the app for the study abroad students so that you will have an easy link. And I'm going to work on that guide in the summer. And I captured some of the ideas of the things, and it's actually consistent with what Jill suggested to me. That would be one useful thing, just like a minimal phrase book for those who are, you know, and those are in existence on the web, you know, it's just a matter of putting it all together, as well as tips, you know, you have problems accessing their library, but, you know, instead you can access our library, or for example, John and Matthew, you know, once they, you know, made the decision or they found some, say, interesting films or books, and they would be, they knew they wanted them here when they come, so they will shoot me a message and say, is there any way you can purchase this? And they're like, great. So by the time they're here, I will already have them ready for use so that they don't waste any time. So I'm seeing this guide as a, you know, kind of like collection of resources where, again, like databases will be not presented by the title, because, you know, like the database you were talking about, I think it was Gabriel, right? You said like things about do's and taboos, you know, we have wonderful databases, but if you look at the database title, it's called like Culturegram or Global Road Warrior. We know that what they're about, but, you know, if I simply put the link, it won't do you any good. So, you know, so I guess we have to go from, you know, the need, what it's all about, and then just give you links to useful resources. So I'm just hoping to have you guys as a team who would give me feedback once I throw together the prototype. Will that be okay?
I think that'd be cool, and one thing I might even add to that is just a little section of like with our email addresses or contact information, like for people who have been there, where if someone's thinking about going to Moscow or something.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I love stuff like this, so like meeting up with someone who's going to Russia would be awesome.
Yeah, that is a fabulous idea, because, you know, we've been thinking for years and years what would be a good way to kind of help people make those meaningful contacts. And of course there are clubs, you know, like Ming was president of the Arabic Club, And then there are UC International, I understand, is doing something to, help people establish those mentoring relationships. But if we can be part of this and offer another outlet, that would be fantastic. And then if hopefully the word spreads, and of other people, that's what Web 2.0 is supposed to be for in life. It's kind of, all those guys have comment features, not that anybody ever uses them, but, but we can, I can even make you all like co-editors, and we can add stuff, so we can talk about those things. So I would really love, I know most of you who came, and but I've been really bad. Like I don't have like feedback forms or even like an attendance sheet, But I would like to capture the names of those who have been here today. So particularly important, like I'll go get a piece of paper. Particularly for those of you who did not RSVP or didn't sign up before, so that I know that you were here. And I would love to send you, and I'm sure Kevin as well, just to send you a message afterwards and just capture your thoughts, what you got out of it, and what are some suggestions. Was it a useful conversation? What kind of conversations would you like in the future? Who we should invite. And I don't know if anybody has any questions about those fabulous pictures. I have like my person, I wish I had thought about it and brought some kind of like awards, because there's one picture that I think is totally stunning. I mean, they're all very interesting, but but if you guys would like to comment on your pictures, or if anybody has a question, but like about this one, for example, at first I was hastily downloading pictures, and I'm like, oh, geez, she's like awfully close to a snake.
Hey, Oya, it would be really cool too if the staff put their contact information on your, the study abroad page, because so many of us have experience living abroad already, or being married to people abroad, traveling abroad. So if there are cultural questions and just the everyday question, that they want to meet with you for an hour before they leave, or more. Also, we were on that global committee, and we talked about apps that maybe the library could be involved in creating apps where the student could use an app while they're taking pictures. And then, before they go to their next picture, they can add metadata to their picture. Where it was, who they are, and then just kind of submit it to a library page.
Oh,
that kind of thing. And also, maybe collecting the best apps. Apps happen so fast. Before you know it, people are using them before we know what they're using. Apps where you can, point your camera at a mountain and your camera can tell you what mountain that is. Those are already around. Maybe we should group them on that page as a resource.
USAC has something like that. Like they have super helpful apps. They even have a contact sheet for people that's gone to the country before. Use them as a template.
I have one last question, just out of curiosity, because I know you mentioned the food differences and just little things like wearing a scarf in certain areas. Were the locals pretty good about, if you had a question, like just answering that, or does that offend them if you ask different questions? Because I'm the type of person that if I don't know, I want to ask, but I also don't want to cross boundaries and upset people. So how do you go about those little things? Like, did you just learn from watching, or, because I know I've gone to dinner with people and you're just like, okay, I'll wait for someone else to eat first and hope that I can figure it out. But how do you maneuver around those certain things?
I think asking is a cultural thing. Like, I don't know how they're gonna react where you go, so I wouldn't be able to tell you honestly.
And if you have any questions, just ask them. I believe people will be very happy to help you, to show you their culture.
Yeah, if you ask in the way that you want to learn more about their culture rather than you're questioning their culture, I think that's like a really good way of like facilitating those discussions, because everyone wants to share their culture and like
let you know about themselves and their history and stuff. So I think the way you ask it can be really important.
In countries like Japan, where there are so many rules and traditions that vary village to village, it even confuses the locals. I mean, you can even be staring at a plate of food and you won't know what it is as a local Japanese person. You just ask. It's a culture of asking. You know, do I clap at this temple or do I not clap? Or everyone is there on hand because they all have the same question too. And I would think that where you're going, you know, having that information is really necessary. They'll be happy to answer your question. There must be, you know, a lot of foreigners who get confused too.
Yeah, but I'm really thinking about it now, and that actually would be a good question to ask your learning friend.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
Thank you very much. I know some of us have to go to class or whatever, but I think Oya said you can stick around
Yes,
and
please do,
talk.
and,
And
you
thank
know,
you very much.
stick around, and thank you so much.